I can't stress enough how important it is to give students opportunities to practice listening skills in the classroom, not just for directions and to be compliant, but how to be strategic in their listening when they are listening to presentations, multimedia, or to each other in discussions. We need to talk more in class. Not teachers, but we need our students to talk more in class. Much like how there's a lot of background processes going on when students are reading, like all this is happening in their brain when they're reading. And they get stronger as they practice it over and over again. There's also a lot of background synthesis happening when they are actively listening. That's why it's important to get those brains lit every single day in the classroom by generating words through listening, speaking, and writing. Also, talking it out helps them battle the forgetting curve. And a brain break to discuss will help them focus more. I used to set a timer for every 15 minutes of class time so that students would get up and talk to each other, and it was really beneficial. And it was really easy to just stop and just give them something to do to discuss, some sort of discussion-based mini task in the middle of a lesson. Whether it was a read aloud, or even my favorite, if we were modeling note-taking strategies, I'd get them to discuss their notes with each other. But especially lectures, they need to talk. They need to get up and have their chance to talk too. So when planning to embed listening and speaking strategies into my daily instruction, I think of two things: the setup and the actual talking task. The setup is how I want them to discuss. This can be elbow partners where they just turn to someone in the desk adjacent to them, or my favorite, doing a chips and salsa strategy, which is really a mingle session where I say, this side of the classroom, y'all are chips. That side of the classroom, y'all are salsa. Every chip needs to find a salsa and get ready to talk. And of course, for larger classes, you might have queso and guacamole mixed in, but I really try to stick with pairs. Once that's set up, then I rotate between all sorts of different speaking and listening strategies. Sometimes they will have to work on coming up with an answer that they're going to share out loud to the class. Sometimes they're going to work on writing down their thoughts. Sometimes they're going to share their notes with each other and then add or clarify their notes because they're doing that sharing. For introverted or shy students, it's always good to assign roles. So you can say, the chips, you're going to do all the talking. The salsa, you're going to do all the listening. And so then there's just no surprises or no that anxiety that comes from having to move the conversation forward by yourself. We should probably do a separate video for some of these strategies over here because they're a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm going to share some of my favorite go-to speaking and listening tasks or strategies that I use and embed in my daily instruction. Quick review, remember there's two parts, the setup and the talking task. The setup is just how you want the students organized so they can have a discussion with each other and activate each other as a good resource. Elbow partners for a really quick, 30-second, 1-minute discussion, have them turn their desks to each other. Elbow partners, someone within elbow's reach, that's who your partner is going to be. Then there's also mingle strategies where they get up and walk around. These are great for longer class periods. If they've been sitting for 15 minutes and just listening to you or reading silently to themselves, something like that, they need to stand up. When the rump goes numb, the brain goes dumb, right? Really quick, easy strategy. Say this side of the room, your chips, that side of the room, your salsa. Every chip needs to find one salsa, go, and get ready to discuss. For bigger classes, you want to add guac and queso. So every chip, guac, and queso needs to make an appetizer group and get ready to discuss or create something to represent what we're talking about. Now let's go through some of these strategies over here. We have the cognitive demand, at least what I think is the cognitive demand of each of these strategies that's focused on, and then the actual instructional strategy. 2, focus on having students generate good questions. Sometimes they know the answer, sometimes they don't know the answer. I just want them to practice asking good questions. Now, I'll usually have taught a lesson where they learn how to write level 1, 2, and 3 questions, and so then they know exactly what I mean when I say, okay, write level questions. I want 3 level 1s, 2 level 2s, and 1 level 3 question. And then they will get to work doing that and sharing it, and this is something they can discuss and do collaboratively in a discussion together. Here's kind of what my handout looks like for that, and if I can, if I'm at a school that is really kind with the copying machine, I'll make copies for all the students to put in their writer's notebooks. Another fun one is the I Notice, I Wonder strategy, where they can write on sticky notes and they post it somewhere where I'll make a T-chart in the room, usually just on the whiteboard, because it's just easier. And then I can kind of see trends along the lines of what they notice and what they wonder about an infographic, a chart, or some sort of excerpt from a book. 3 takeaways is just retrieval practice. I just want them to tell me what are 3 things they remember from what we were just talking about. What are the 3 things that stand out to them? There's a lot of comprehension skills that go into summarization. So let's talk about summarization. I love the just sentence. Write me a 1-sentence summary of what we just discussed. It has to be exactly 20 words and 1 sentence. Again, I can't stress that enough. Just 1 sentence. Summarize all the important stuff. They can also summarize things by putting it on a pitchfork. Have the claim over here, and then what's evidence to support the claim. Might look like something like that. ESP is a good one to summarize, especially like stories, where the events, settings, and people involved. It's really good for nonfiction articles as well, so you could use it in like social studies history. Having them share their notes is one of my favorites. There's lots of note-taking strategies you can use. This is probably one of my favorites for discussion. They write everything they know about a topic in the circle, and then when they share it out with someone else, they write everything they learned from looking at other people's notes on the outside of the circle. Go down to that link. Another way that students can like just have discussions, but have them be productive, is you can have them create a T-chart together. You can give them whiteboard space. They can create it on like a scratch sheet of notebook paper and be ready to share that out, and actually take details from what they did on notebook paper and add it to like maybe a group T-chart on the whiteboard. It's always helpful when they're doing something together in pairs and they're adding to the whole discussion of the group. Graphic organizers. I like to have them create graphic organizers, but you can print graphic organizers and do kind of the same thing with the T-chart. My favorite go-to. It's fun to draw. It's fun to recreate. It's pretty self-explanatory, but of course there's a lot more complex graphic organizers you might use in your classroom for different like modes of writing, for instance. They might take the graphic organizer for an argumentative writing prompt and tear apart someone else's argumentative writing or opinion piece from New York Times op-ed, something like that. I got lots of different examples of how they can take different writing strategies and just create some collaborative writing. They can also do this and recreate this like on a Google Doc if they wanted to use technology, or if you're working remotely still for whatever reason. Down there, explain your brain is a comprehension strategy where you just explain exactly what you're thinking. It can be, and you're encouraging first draft thought. Like there are no wrong answers, but what are you thinking? Don't stop talking. This is usually when you'd have to assign an A partner and a B partner and say the A partner is going to explain their brain to the B partner. B partner, just listen, and then you're going to have to summarize what the A partner is saying. You cannot stop talking for like 60 seconds. Here's a timer on the board. Just go. Train of thought. Go. Examples and non-examples is always a good one. It's a really good one for like a quick discussion. If you want to extend it out, you can have them pull out a full like Freyer model for vocabulary, but I just really like focusing on the examples and non-examples, especially when you're going over some domain-specific terms. It's a great discussion activity for like mathematics, for that to be practiced in the classroom, science and history as well. Hope you got some ideas. Hope you got some enjoyment out of it. Leave a comment if you have any questions or I need to go back through any of this more slowly. I'd be happy to do that and share any of these slides with you, of course. Most of them are in my guidebook. So what are teachers doing while students are engaged in collaborative academic discussions? We're conducting an informal formative assessment. While students are grouped and discussing, we're moving around the room and listening in. We're listening for anything worth showcasing, some like particularly unique insights from students that we might overhear. But we're also listening for any confusion points. Because depending on how your classroom is arranged, there might be confusion points because they're not all going to receive the same message because they're not all focused directly in the same way, depending on where their seat is. And, sometimes there's not much we can do about that, but we should be aware of that. And that's why we listen for, okay, were you confused by the presentation? I can tell you're confused because I overheard your conversation over there. And this corner of the room didn't get the same message as this corner of the room. So that's why we got to revolve around, listen for those confusion points. And then when we come back, we can reteach. There's an opportunity to reteach and clarify any confusion. But also we want to showcase that like really great, superb responses from students, some insights that was really unique, or when they really got something there that's worth sharing, because that helps not only build relationships with the students, but it also shows and clarifies the expectations for the whole class. But really, this is a powerful formative assessment because it can really help determine whether my class is even ready to move on, or I need to reteach, or I need to slow down. Sometimes it can just be a really quick discussion to clarify that confusion and then move forward. Sometimes you really just got, okay, let me take a step back and just reteach that whole formula or concept to you, or let me just think of a different way. Let me give you a graphic organizer to help lead your discussions in this because the way I did it isn't working. And sometimes when the students come up with some really particularly unique insight, I'll want to archive that and I'll share it with other class periods. I might even archive it and share it as like, okay, this is going to my personal student samples portfolio with consent, of course, because it is their original work. And I want to share it with, this is the expectation I want all students to have for years to come, if I decide to do this lesson again next year.